Good evening. I now call the East Lyme Zoning Commission regular meeting of May 1st, 2025 to order at 7:30 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for the roll call, Ann Thurlow is absent. I am here. Norm Peck?
Yep.
Denise?
Here.
Mike Foley?
Yes.
Debbie Jed Harris?
Here.
Jim Liska is not. Sarah Cisco is absent. Kathy Uhas?
Here.
Kathy, can you be seated tonight, please? Mr. Mulholland?
Yes, here should be sitting in place of Antholo, is that correct?
Yes.
Chair, thank you for the record.
Mrs. Hardy is not here, and Jessica LaRocco is. Okay. Public hearing, the East Lyme Zoning Commission proposal for text amendment to mixed-use commercial CA zone section 8.2.2 by replacing the current language with new language with additional controls in section 25.5 of the East Lyme zoning regulations. We have a memo to read.
You want to take the first or the second?
I'll take the second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Memo to East Lyme Zoning Commission, proposed text amendment, mixed-use CA commercial zones. William Mulholland, zoning official. As the commission is aware, its subcommittee on mixed use has been working on a method to control use in the CA zones. In 2023, the board modified its mixed-use regulations in the CB commercial zone. The subcommittee's goal is to better regulate the use and to preserve certain areas of the community that have areas of historic value. To achieve that purpose, it is specifically proposed to amend Section 8 CA Commercial District of the zoning regulations. Presently, mixed use is regulated as a special permit use in the CA zone under Section 8.2.2 of the regulations. This section states 8.2.2 mixed-use dwelling units limited to mixed-use situations in which dwelling units are contained within a building dedicated principally to a permitted commercial, non-residential use. A portion of the jointly used building committed to dwelling units shall not exceed 50% of the improved floor area. Subgrade floor area is not to be considered in this calculation. Notwithstanding the provisions of Section 8.3.6, parking shall be provided based on the greater of the calculation for the commercial portion of the premises or the residential calculation as provided in Section 22.1.3, plus 50% of that for use requiring the lesser calculation. Mixed uses are also subject to Section 25, special permits, and Section 25.5, table of minimum controls for special permits. A brief review of this table finds that the Commission adopted modified mixed-use controls for CB zones in May of 2023. They state in full, 1. Second floor resident units over existing first floor commercial uses in existing building. 2. Square footage to be no greater than the existing first floor area. 3. Second floor residential units may be added as a new second floor addition to the existing one-story building. 4. Parking in accordance with Section 22. 5. Height per Section 9. 6. Subject to Section 34 Architectural Design Review. 7. Municipal water and sewer must be provided. Further, mixed use is defined in Section 1.50 of the definition sections and states, a building or group of buildings, each of which shall be devoted to a commercial use along the street line on the ground floor and at least one upper floor or portion thereof shall be devoted to residential use. For the purposes of this definition, parking shall not be considered a commercial use. It is specifically proposed to delete section 8.2.2 and replace it with the following. Existing buildings only, dwelling units limited to mixed-use situations in which dwelling units are contained within a building dedicated principally to a permitted commercial non-residential use. A portion of the jointly used building committed to dwelling units shall not exceed 50% of the improved floor area. Subgrade floor area is not to be considered in this calculation. Add CA zone to the existing mixed-use controls on section 25.5, which would be subject to items 1 through 7 above, making the mixed-use regulations similar to the CB and CA zone. And add the following. Within the CA zone, mixed use is allowed in the following areas. 1. From the intersection of Black Point Road and Main Street southerly to the intersections of Crossley Court and the intersection of McElhaney Drive. From the intersection of Boston Post Road, Chesterfield Road, and Flanders Road, westerly, including all of the CA zoning district, to the westerly termination of the district at East Lyme Assessor's Map 30.1, Lot 58, and easterly from said intersection to the terminus of the zones at Lot 18 and 19 on the East Lyme Assessor's Map 32.1. In conclusion, the Commission should carefully evaluate their view of mixed uses. At question is whether the board wants to be more restrictive in its control of mixed use as reflected in this proposal.
Thank you. There's a CCOG memo, which is,
There's a planning commission memo too, and here's the CCOG.
Do you want me to read the planning one, the next one in the packet?
yes, please.
Application of East Lyme Zoning Commission for a proposed text amendment to the East Lyme zoning regulations by modifying section 8.2.2 mixed-use commercial CA zone and updating the section identifiers as necessary. Chairwoman Thurlow, the East Lyme Planning Commission at its meeting of April 8th, 2025 unanimously found the above referenced text amendment consistent with the 2020 East Lyme Plan of Conservation and Development as amended. If you have any further questions regarding this letter or the POCD, please do not hesitate to contact the Director of Planning, Gary A. Gayshall, at 860-691-4105. Sincerely, Brian Bombeck, Secretary.
Thank you. Does somebody want to read the CCOG memo?
Sure. Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments. To Ann Thurlow. Chairman Thurlow, I am writing in response to a request for an intermunicipal referral for the town of East Lyme. The application was received March 27th. The application was referred to this agency pursuant to section 8-3B of the Connecticut General Statutes. The proposed regulation amendment seeks to update the language in section 8.2.2 of the East Lyme zoning regulations to allow mixed use within the CA zone with controls to align with mixed use regulations in the CB zone. Based on a review of the material provided, I have determined that the proposed zoning regulation amendment is not likely to have a negative municipal impact. Any questions? Sincerely, Dan Robinson, Associate Planner.
Thank you. So, do we have a Deepman?
Yeah,
Yes.
right here.
Want me to read it?
Yes, please.
This one's from the Deep. Dear Commissioners, thank you for referring the above referenced proposed set of zoning text amendments for our review and comment. The zoning text amendments included in this submission to our office have been proposed by the applicant, East Lyme Zoning Commission Subcommittee on Mixed Use. Acting as a Commissioner's staff, our office has reviewed the proposed set of zoning text amendments for consistency with the policies and standards of the Connecticut Coastal Management Act, and we have the following comments for your consideration. The proposed set of zoning text amendments for mixed-use development would, by special permit, allow for such development in two commercial districts, CA and CB, and would pertain only to existing buildings. In addition, the proposed amendments would maintain the requirement that said buildings would be used primarily for commercial purposes, with the commercial presence being located at street level and at any residential dwellings being developed on the second or higher floors. Finally, with respect to the CA zoning district, the allowance of mixed-use development is noted only for specific areas by special permit. It appears that much thought went into the establishment of this land use within the proposed CA zoning district, and to remove to the maximum extent possible all special flood areas from application of this land use. DEEP would like to commend the town of its careful consideration of SFHAs by removing such areas from the application of mixed-use developments, which help the proposed zoning text amendments maintain consistency with the CCMA. Specifically, Section 22A-92 of the CCMA requires coastal hazard areas to be managed as to ensure that development proceeds in such a manner that hazards to life and property are minimized. Please be advised that this consistency determination is based on coastal management considerations only and does not necessarily reflect other municipal planning and zoning considerations that may apply. These comments are made in response to the review requirement contained in Section 22A-104E of the Connecticut General Statutes, which requires that notification be sent to the Commissioner of Energy and Environmental Protection at least 35 days prior to the commencement of the public hearing. Once notified, our office is responsible for reviewing the proposal's consistency with the policies of section proposed zoning text amendment sections 8.2.2 and 25.5, April 2025, 22A-92 of the criteria of section 22A-102. Should you have any questions regarding this letter, please feel free to contact me. Sincerely, Karen Michaels.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Nope. Not at all.
Questions? Yeah, is anyone going to make a pitch for this, or we just drop it in our laps like this?
Well, Norm, do you
Norm?
want to give us, since you're the subcommittee?
The idea was same as what we had in downtown Niantic. We felt that Niantic, the village, was being eaten up by a very popular and market demanding type of use, which is mixed use. And we were afraid that some historically significant buildings would be taken down and try to maintain the charm. The Boston Post Road happens to be the true historic area of Niantic that was built long before downtown Niantic, and there are some significant buildings along that stretch that we'd like to preserve. And the other point was, as is more so in the Niantic Village, but somewhat in this stretch of road, there are some buildings, for example, the old mill building, several older buildings that have upstairs apartments that are pretty affordable. And to tear them down and build up another building that they pay twice as much for rent, that's the idea. Those were the thoughts. But primarily to preserve.
Thank you. Anyone on the commission have comments, questions?
Nope, not I.
Does anyone in the public have comments or questions that they'd like to bring forward?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Harry Heller. I'm an attorney with an office at 736 Route 32 in Uncasville, and I represent 283 BPR LLC. 283 BPR LLC is a limited liability company that owns properties at 225 and 235 Flanders Road in the CA zoning district. so it has standing to make a presentation with respect to this application. On behalf of our client, we oppose the proposed text amendment and submit to the Commission that in its current configuration, the Commission does not have authority to consider or approve the text amendment. In Connecticut, zoning or regulation of land use through the zoning process did not exist at common law. It is specifically a creature of statute, Chapter 124 of the General Statutes, and it's called enabling legislation. And the enabling legislation allows municipalities in Connecticut, other than some of the older cities which have zoning through special acts, to adopt zoning regulations and to regulate land use through that process. However, in doing so, Connecticut General Statute Section 8-2 creates the legal structure that defines the permissible bounds within which you may adopt those regulations. And there are two critical provisions of Section 8-2 which are applicable to the text amendment that you are considering this evening and which are facially violated by the text of the amendment you're considering. The first is Section 8-2A2, which provides such zoning commission may divide the municipality into districts of such number, shape, and area as may be best suited to carry out the purposes of this chapter. And within such districts, it may regulate the erection, construction, reconstruction, alteration, or use of buildings or structures, and the use of land. All zoning regulations shall be uniform for each class or kind of building, structures, or use of land throughout each district. But the regulations in one district may differ from those in another district. The second provision that is violated by this text amendment is Section 8-2B1, which says that zoning regulations adopted pursuant to subsection A of this section shall be made in accordance with a comprehensive plan and in consideration of the Plan of Conservation and Development adopted under 823. The consideration of the Plan of Conservation and Development is not at issue here. What is at issue is the fact that you have a comprehensive plan requirement and you have a uniformity requirement, which are fundamental facets of every regulation that you adopt and every map amendment that you make in enabling zoning in your municipality. And what you have done in the text of the text amendment that you're considering this evening is carved out two special areas in the CA zoning district to be treated differently from other areas within the CA zoning district. That per se violates the uniformity requirements of Section 8-2 of the statutes. You simply do not have authority to do that. There are other vehicles that you can consider, such as creating a different zone if you want to zone those two areas separately where they have different use parameters from the remainder of the CA zoning district. But by carving out in the text different uses and different application parameters to regulate those uses, you per se violate the uniformity requirements of Section 8-2A2. And we would submit that you also violate the comprehensive plan requirements, because when you are altering uses allowable within a specific district, that per se is not a comprehensive plan, which is defined as the division of land within your municipality into differing zones and then enumerating uses and regulating uses which are allowed in those zones. Because of both the comprehensive plan requirement and the uniformity requirement, we submit that if you approve this text amendment, you are exceeding your regulatory authority under Section 8-2, and that it would be subject to reversal on appeal. And I'm going to submit a copy of the enabling legislation into the record. Clerk?
Exhibit item 6.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is all that I have at this time. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Anyone?
No, not me, thank you.
No.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? So, commissioners, do we want to do a motion to close, or do we want to continue?
No, I don't think there's going to be any more useful testimony. I'd make a move to close the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have to abstain.
Okay. Opposed? None? So, 5-0. Okay, you got it. Okay. Okay. Now for the regular meeting, I open up the regular meeting of the East Lyme Zoning Commission proposal for text amendment to mixed-use commercial CA zone, section 8.2.2, by replacing the current language with new language with additional controls in section 25.5 of the East Lyme zoning regulations.
Madam Chair, if I may, I might suggest, certainly up to the board, that we continue the regular meeting and let me do a little bit of research and get back to you at the next meeting, just to ensure that we vet Attorney Heller's comments and be prudent. I've heard a variety of different arguments over the years, and I find sometimes it's helpful just to take a step back, just to ensure that any action you take is correct and has good legal standing. But certainly up to the board what you choose to do.
I
Of
think that
course, if we deny the motion, the proposal, then that becomes moot.
That's correct.
So why don't we push forward a little bit and see where we stand?
I'm all for waiting till the next meeting.
I'm in agreement with you.
Yes, me too.
Same.
Okay.
Did I hear a yes from you, Kathy?
Mhm.
Okay. So we'll hold off and discuss it at the next meeting,
Yeah. I'd like
which
to-
off the top of my head is
A week from tonight.
2 weeks from tonight.
2 weeks from
Yeah, we
tonight.
get 2 weeks.
Oh, I thought we had.
We got a little
okay,
break.
good. Thank you.
Okay, next we have to dispose of the minutes. Approval of the minutes of 4/24/25 regular meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
I have one minor change, or correction actually. On page page 4, Zach Rodriguez, his name is Zyrex, Z-Y-R-E-X. That is my only correction. Can I have a motion to second the minutes, to pass the minutes?
I make a motion that we second it with the correction.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nobody? Motion passes. Old business? Subcommittee reports? New business, application of Greg Landers for the site plan review and special permit for mixed use for a tear down and rebuild of existing barn on property located at 132 Boston Post Road, East Lyme. Assessors map 31.1 lot 6.
I will schedule that, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any business on the floor? And there is no correspondence. Public delegations. The public delegations is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission regarding zoning land use items that are not on the agenda. Anyone?
Is this for the new business here?
No, that's gonna be another night.
Oh, okay, all right. So
We're not gonna talk about that tonight.
Okay,
We're just gonna schedule it.
okay.
Ms. Mulholland, anything?
Time to time, we talk about Stop and Shop and Trees. I did have a meeting with one of the minority owners and one of the majority owners and their engineer. I'm anticipating a plan any day. They've agreed to replace the trees. We're working on a design. I'm pushing real hard to have it done this spring, and it's planting season, although it's starting to get a little long in the tooth. But I think that's going to happen, so that's getting done. Dad's restaurant rebuild, they're due to open by Memorial Day. I've been in it, I've been on the deck, you can see the ocean. It's going to be a very nice setting. So hopefully that will be a nice addition, and the food will be good, hopefully. That's all I have.
I have a question, if I may. I brought it up at the last meeting in regards to the watershed. I don't know if I'm just curious. I just kind of like to know what is what with it. But the signs that say entering and leaving our watershed in East Lyme, who is in charge of that?
That I shared with you that after the last meeting, I had a conversation with Ben North, the director of Water Department, and we had a conversation, and this is possible.
It's what? I'm sorry.
It's possible to do something. We may have to define an area. He may have to define it. We're pursuing that to ensure we understand who has jurisdiction and who doesn't. I'm assuming it's the Water Department, but we're going to investigate further and we'll report back.
Thank you very
much. But I
much.
started that conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, zoning board liaison to the planning commission. 513 is Sarah Susko. 610 is Ann Thurlow. There's no comments from the chair.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Bang,
Second.
Zoom, how about
All in
that?
favor?
Aye.
Picked a good one, Cindy.
Whoa,
We don't always have them, you know that, but once in a while we get a shorty.